right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Too Many Hobbies podcast. I am your host, Brian Althorpe. Today's guest, you guys have see him on a Punisher Waterfowl podcast. It's my buddy, Damien Pittman. Welcome to the show, Damien.
Hey, thanks, buddy. This is weird. I gotta admit, this is weird. I'm on the other end here.
Well, I kind of figured, you're always the one giving the interviews, and now you're being interviewed.
Yeah. This is cool, though, buddy. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, well, if anybody's listened to the Punisher podcast, you know that Damien has a lot of interesting guests on. He's had me on twice, so thank you for having me on and presenting me to a few other people, which has been it's been a cool networking opportunity, and it's been awesome getting to know you guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely, buddy. That's what this is. That's what this is all supposed to be, right? It's all supposed to be people helping people out and trying to introduce and grow the community as best you can, right? So that's at least the way that I look at it. So I think it's really cool when I sit back and I see some of the things that you post, and I'm like, man, that's so cool. I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous of Brian.
Well, it's I think that's what's really popular about your podcast is that, it's just a group of guys that, you guys didn't really start with any affiliation with anything, and you just kind of started, bullshitting and recording it. So on that note, I think there's some people, including myself, like when I started listening to the show, it was a little further into the show, so I didn't really get the whole background of your guys' show. So if you could kind of go through how it started and where the Punisher Waterfowl name came from.
Well, okay, so I'm ex-military, and while I was still active and still serving, every 3-4 years I was moving to a new area. So and what was typical of the areas that I was moving to was that there was always a army asshole that was there before me that screwed over some farmers or screwed over some landowners. So when me and my buddy would go knock on the door and they could tell we were military, they didn't want us on their property, and rightfully so, because they were burned by some dudes, right? So so we were just getting frustrated. We couldn't get anybody to give us any permission. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to make a Facebook page and pretend that we're this big hotshot company. And I went online and I found there's a website. It was called logotournament.com. And what you do is however much money you want to spend. So I'll say I put in $100 American, and that got me, I think that guaranteed me 10 designs. So then I paid my $100 American, and so you fill out a questionnaire. This is a really long story, Brian. So so anyways, I filled out the questionnaire, and this dude over in Indonesia, he came up with pretty close to what the final logo looks like today, which I absolutely fell in love with. So I got the logo, I created the Facebook page, pretended to be this hotshot up and coming waterfowl company, and then all of a sudden people started inviting me out to hunt. Come out and hunt with us. And I'm like, well, and like I was still a soldier. I wasn't making a ton of money. I had a young family. My wife was a stay-at-home mom at the time, so didn't have a lot of money. So these guys were asking me to come hunt, and I was like, well, how much and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, no, just make sure you talk about us on your social media feed and stuff like this. And I was like, oh, this is fucking cool. So anyways, so we did a few hunts like that, and then people started asking me, exactly what is it that you do? And then I was like, oh, the jig is kind of up here because I don't do anything. So then I started plastering the logo on everything, on hats and hoodies and t-shirts and stuff. And the logo was pretty cool. So people liked it, and people started buying it. And then I decided, well, this isn't enough. I reached out to Banded when Banded was first starting as a company.
Okay.
And they were super cool. And those guys don't remember me, I'm sure, but they were really, really good to me. And they were just starting out, and I started selling banded gear out of my basement, which was pretty cool, and it was awesome. Like
Yeah.
they worked with me and tried their best to make it so that I would make some money, but it was really hard to try and turn that profit with shipping and the conversion from the American to the Canadian dollar and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't last very long. And then I said, well, I'm going to make my own stuff. So I had a buddy that was a rigger in the military, so parachutes and the whole bit. So he knew how to sew and properly and all that stuff. So he started making decoy bags for me and all kinds of stuff. So I did that for a little bit. Couldn't compete. It was still too hard. And it was around about that time that I started thinking, you know what? So I got to back up. I'm pretty pig-headed. So when people tell me I can't, like it's not that it's going to fail, I've got a hard job letting go then, because I want to prove people wrong so bad then. But it was around that time that I really started thinking, you know, like, what am I going to do? I was heading to Iraq on my final tour. I was really starting to wonder, like, what am I doing here? Like, this is costing me more money than what I'm making. And it was causing some stress between my wife and I, obviously, right? Because the funds and stuff like that. And that's when Dave Palmer, my business partner, that's when round about the time that Dave came on. And Dave had a new way of thinking when it comes to some certain stuff. So Dave came on board and we sort of brainstormed on some stuff, but we were still, you know, trying to figure out our way. And then one day I just said to him, I was like, what do you think about a podcast? And he was like, he said 100%, I think we should do a podcast. And I was like, well, I reached out to our buddies, Mark, Phil, and Ryan, and they were like, yeah, let's see what it does, right? And originally it was supposed to be, you know, 5 of us getting on and chatting from, you know, the summer until when duck season started. Once duck season started, we were gonna shut it down and just focus on hunting. And obviously that didn't stick because we do it every week now, regardless. And as they say, the rest is history, right? Like we're pretty lucky. Like the people that we've met, like you and all these guys that we've met that have come on the show and now are friends, right? Like that's the craziness of this. So, you know, anybody that's listening, if you listen to how the brand started to now, to the friends that you and I have common friends now that, dude, 5 years ago, I was watching these guys' DVDs and learning from them. and now these guys are, you know, we're chatting. We don't chat all the time, but we do chat. They're in my phone. They're a contact. You know what I mean? So it's cool, man. Like we never had any, I guess, aspirations or goals of taking over the world or anything. We just wanted to have some fun and just we talked every night anyways. But it was through a Facebook group chat. We chatted every night anyways. So now we just saved it all up for the week and just did it on video.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's a weird feeling when you start actually talking to these people. Like I mean, for instance, John Stahl. Like you have helped me get in touch with him, and now like he's technically my boss.
That, you know, man, like I told you earlier, like my dad used to say, if you think I'm jealous, you're right. Because you know, but it's cool. But that just goes to show, like I told you, right? Like the one of the best things I can do is know that I helped somebody out. And to know that you and Sean are going to do this mini tour that you're going to do and get out on this on 3 or 4 solid hunts.
Yeah.
Buddy, that's amazing, and it's good for you because it shows the hard work, all the hard work that you've done. Because, and that's the thing that people don't get, is because they only see the end result, right? They only see the fact that, oh, Ella Thorpe's going and hanging out with 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤, right? But they didn't see all of the hours upon hours and weeks of editing video and trying to make sure that what you're putting out is the absolute best product that you could put. Nobody sees that, right? They just see the end product. So I'm happy for you, dude. I really am, because it's paid off for you, all the hard work that you've done.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that when I first started my show was kind of a way to talk behind the scenes of the stuff that I was putting out. So like being able to say like, hey, we went on 4 different hunts before we had one that I was able to make a video of, but I still had to set up all the gear. I still had to go scouting and do all of, put all of that work in.
Yeah.
Like filming wildlife is the hardest thing of all time because you can't control that at all. I can go and film a review video because it's sitting right in front of me, but it's like I can't go out and say, well, today we will shoot 12 mallards.
That's right.
It's just like I'm at the mercy of that, and the amount of times that I go out and hunt does not reflect how many videos I put
out. Well, buddy, I'm going to tell you, and I'd be lying if I told you that I haven't thought, and I mean put a serious amount of thought into buying some camera gear and going out and sort of kind of doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I can't do it. Like I don't have, not only do I not have the ability, like the creative ability to put it together, but I don't have the patience for it. Do you know what I mean? Like
I totally do.
You set up every hunt and you're just recording, and you've got all this stuff that everything's got to be perfect, and then you got to rely on Mother Nature.
Right.
And I don't have the patience for it. Yeah. I just don't. I wish I did, and I wish I was creative, but I'm just not. So, yeah.
It's more of like, so I've had to get creative in how I film things just because like I'm a fan of the first person view. So like I think it's cool when people are putting out these videos where they've got really nice cameras and they're filming the whole thing. But I like to see like that person go through the hunt. I've always found that intriguing. And if I want to watch TV quality shows, then that's what I'll watch it on TV. Like there's so many on YouTube now that's almost gotten diluted. So like it's funny that you say like that you don't have the patience for it, because there's a lot of people that I hunt with and I'll film an entire video. I'll edit it, I'll post it, and I'll send it to people and they'll go, I had no idea you were filming.
Yeah.
Because I just have a GoPro on my head, another one set off to the side, the shot cam on my gun, and then if something's happening, the dog is doing its thing or whatever, like I might get a camera out or I might just film it with my phone. And then it's like,
really?
And nobody has any clue. It's funny because it's like,
which makes it a little more candid, right?
Yeah, but it also is just not intrusive to the people that I hunt with. So I can go on a really good hunt. Like I was on a hunt 2 years ago, right across the street from my house actually. And they were already set up 4 A-frames. We had 12 guys hunting this goose pond late season. We shot all 60 birds, and like by the time that it was done, like nobody even knew I was using a camera. I went back, I edited the whole thing, and then I sent it out, and people were messaging me and they're like, I had no idea you were even filming down there. No clue.
That's cool.
It's like,
that's cool.
I like that because then it's not me sticking a camera in people's faces and trying to be like the next Bobby guy or whoever trying to vlog stuff, because I don't really like the vlogging type thing. It's like I just want to see a nice hunt and then we're done, so it's like trying not to be that guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I know for me, I think I would appreciate it a lot more than the camera being in my face. And then
right,
I don't know, that as much as I try to be myself 100% of the time, sometimes if a camera's in your face, you sort of kind of gotta talk a little different and make sure you know what I mean. Like you're not 100% yourself when a camera's pointed at you, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and like I have a buddy named Damien actually that I hunt with all the time. He was my roommate in college, and he is just off the wall all the time. Like he is just a crazy dude. He's always cracking jokes. He's always just out of his mind.
Yeah.
But I will warn him before, like, hey, I'm gonna film you real quick, because there's like when you get a camera pointed on you, it's different. It's a different feeling. So like it gives him a half a second to get his mind ready for it, to like, instead of getting thrown off guard, like, what are you doing? And I rarely do it. It's just there's some times where he's doing something, I'm like, I'm gonna put the camera on you, and he's like, okay, and then he just starts going. It's like,
that's awesome.
I think it's cool. I think that it would be cool for you, not even just like filming stuff to put it on YouTube, but just for the memories of it, like with your dog and your kids and stuff like that. Like that's I think what the best part about filming them is.
Yeah, I guess
so. I would say do it.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about it, just do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sticking on the Punisher topic, we had our buddy Greg had a question that I thought would fit in pretty well here. He asked when there was a moment within the Punisher journey that it started to feel like, oh, this is real, and this is starting to take a turn. Did that moment hit you at any point when you started, doing interviews and stuff? And what was that?
I think it was Jeff Coates.
If I had to guess, that's what I would have said.
Yeah, it was 100% Jeff Coates. Like we were toying with the idea of bringing guests on. Like we had brought our friends on, and nothing against our friends, but like we've got some bonehead idiot friends too, right? So and they're just not, like if someone wants to listen to a Waterfowl podcast, well, sometimes they want like a really cool guest. I'm joking to my buddies who are listening to this. But yeah, so we were toying with the idea of getting some bigger names out, and David messaged me one night and he was like, I put a ask out to Jeff Coates, and I was like, yeah, fuck, Jeff Coates is coming on our show, right? And that's literally what my response was to him. I was like, there's no way Jeff Coates is coming on our show. Like, no. And a couple days later, Dave messages and he was like, he's coming on. I was like, are you serious? I was like, oh shit. So he came on, and we still didn't quite know what to expect, right? Like, because this was new ground for us. And he came on, such an awesome dude, a wealth of knowledge, a really, really good friend now. And I think that was the point when I was like, you know what? Like, you always hear people say things like, well, they're just a regular dude, or that's what I've learned. We just recorded our 160th episode, and that's what I learned the most is that statement is 100% true. Everybody that we've met on that show is just regular guys and girls, like just like they just love hunting ducks. They love the chase, they love the passion just as much or more than what I do, and they're just lucky enough to be able to create and carve their own way in the industry, that they're able to make a living out of it, right? So that I would say was when Jeff Coates, but then it just kept rolling from Jeff Coates. It was Jeff Coates, and it was Corey Foskett, and then it was Sean Stahl and Eric Massey and Bobby Hayes and Heath Hancock, and there's a bunch of people that I'm not thinking of, right? Like that I'm not naming off, but it just kept rolling. Right. And now, now it doesn't happen all the time, but now we'll get people ask us, hey, listen, man, we found your podcast. We're wondering, could we come on? And I'm like, fuck yeah. After like, so this week's episode, the one with the Pattern Pro guys. Yeah. So it was those guys that reached out to us. Yeah. And wanted to come on, and I just think that's so cool that we're at a position where people are asking us, hey, listen, we got this idea. We think it'd be cool if we were on your show. Give us a little bit of exposure. And like, sure, that's awesome. It's cool.
And that also saves you from having to try and find a guest. The guest finds you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But it's a fine line, right? Like I've got to ensure that it doesn't go to my head. Do you know what I mean? Like I gotta make sure that I take it. Not that I'm that type of person, but I don't want it to grow to be something like that where I'm walking around with a chip on my shoulder, right? Because that's not who I am. So I like to keep it as. That's why we still have the same, I guess, way of doing the show. We still say whatever we want. We still have a beer. We'll smoke a cigar. We still try to keep it as close to down to earth as we can, because that, in all reality, that's exactly who we are. We say it at the end of every show. We're not experts, and we'll never pretend to be, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's cool because it shows a lot of people, especially people that are trying to find their way in the industry for whatever it might be, that you don't have to you don't have to know the right people right away. You can kind of feel it out. You can, I mean, it's essentially what both of us have done, is that we've kind of taken baby steps, and then one, break here and there helps kind of leap us a little further. Absolutely. And I mean, I don't feel as though I'm in any massive part of the industry, but just any part of it. It's an interesting journey to get to wherever you're trying to go within it.
Yeah. Like, I think a lot of people think, and you and I have talked about this before, Brian, offline, but I think people believe that this waterfowl industry in North America, and it's mostly in the States. So let's say 90% in the US, 10% in Canada. But people think that this is just this huge multi-billion-dollar industry where, Sean Stahl and Corey Foskett and the guys, that own these companies are just filthy millionaires, and they're, all driving big fancy cars, and that could be no further from the truth, right? Because they're not filthy rich. They've got a brand that they own, but I think that's the thing that people need to realize, is that it's not as big as what everybody thinks it is. It's a very, very small slice of the pie, which is the hunting world in North America. And then, like, for me, so let's say that the waterfowling piece of the pie is, I don't know what you would give it in a percentage, maybe, I don't know, 30%, 40% of
the hunting industry.
Of the hunting
because you've got
industry.
Big game, you've got deer, you've got upland.
And then you got fishing in there too, right? Which I consider part of that. So, which is, fishing is massive, huge, right?
Right.
So let's say, waterfowl comes in at around, 30%, 40%, whatever, of the overall.
Right.
My little piece of that, but if I could get 2% of that piece of pie, that's a win for me.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's
there, and guys like you and I, and there's a bunch of dudes that are doing exactly what we're doing, podcasts and doing all the right things and educating and trying to spread the good word, and they're doing great too. It's I applaud anybody that wants to get into it, and they have that entrepreneurial frame of mind, and they think that they can go for it. Like, don't let anybody tell you, well, you'll never make it. Fuck them. Like, don't let them hold you back. Like, if you want to go try it, it's hard. And it's not gonna, unless you come across, unless you're the guy that, unless you're Ricky Hart and come out with Lucky Duck. Right. You know what I mean? the chances you're going to have to work hard and build up your social media and stuff like that. But that's the thing that I'm learning the most now is that social media numbers, I don't think the big companies really care too much about it anymore.
No. It becomes a flooded market when everybody's doing the same thing. And like, even in podcasting, like, there's only since it's a small community, Waterfowl is a very small community. There's only so many people that you can interview,
That's
that
right.
are like, that are going to be big enough that can help like push your brand,
Yeah.
So it becomes tough for sure.
And there's only so many hours in the day, right? And there's so many podcasts. Like I know, like, you talk to Jeff Coates and Bobby Hayes, right? So those guys are in their shops,
right,
all day, every day, right, working, and that's what they always have podcasts on.
Yeah.
And they all day, every day, and they can't get through all the podcasts. You know what I mean? So, but go for it. Like, if you're leaning on the fence and trying to figure out, should I do it? Go for it. Give it a try.
You won't know until you do it.
Absolutely. Like, that's like those Pattern Pro guys. Like, I told them a dozen times, I'm like, I can't fucking believe I never thought about this idea myself.
I was listening to it and I heard you say that, and I'm like, you would think that somebody else would come up with it before them, but I mean, here they are.
Here they are, and I think they're doing. I think they're doing well. They're doing a good job.
It's a fantastic idea.
It is, man, and that's
how many times have we gone? I really want to shoot like pattern some bismuth. I'm gonna spend $55 on a box of bismuth when I can get whatever from them, but also like multiple other rounds to try out. It's such a good idea.
I think it's brilliant. I just can't believe that I never thought about it, to be honest with you.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. But yeah, so moving through Punisher and getting to the point where you guys are now, what made you start looking at like trying to get other companies to come on board? Real Geese, First Light, Beretta, everybody that's helped you out so far.
Well, so the really cool thing about Craig Mintz and Real Geese, and I don't know how Craig Mintz found our podcast. So he came across our podcast and had listened to it before. I was introduced to Craig through a friend of mine who sort of kind of pro staffs for Real Geese.
Okay.
Perry Blanky is his name. And Perry introduced me to Craig because I wanted to get Craig to come on the show and interview him. And he had already listened to the show, and he was like, listen, I love your show. I want to be part of it. And so Dave and I are like, what? Like, this was foreign to us. We were like, so, what do we do? What do we like, is this $50,000? Is like, we had no idea.
Right.
We don't know. We have no idea what was going on. And so, and I'm a firm believer that just be honest. And I told him, I was like, Craig, we have no idea what we're doing right now. Like, this is foreign to us. We don't know about, sponsorships or what's fair and stuff like that. So, you tell us what do you want to do? And he told us what he wanted to do, and we were like, yeah, we're cool with that. So, so Craig came on, and then Dave had already had a relationship with a couple of the guys from First Light. So Dave already knew those guys. And Dave was sort of kind of on their pro team. They've got some different levels at First Light, or they did back then anyways. And they were coming out with this Waterfowl lineup that was very, very hush-hush at the time. And then out of the blue, First Light guys reached out to Dave and said, hey, listen, we want to come to Canada. We got this new stuff. We want to try it out in the spring on a snow goose hunt. Can you gear something up? And of course, Dave told me, and I was like, yep, we can make that happen. So then those guys came up, and then, that's a great relationship there. And then when it comes to Bobby Hayes and Ducklander, I've been carrying Bobby Hayes. I've had a Ducklander call on my lanyard easy the last 10, 12 years. Easy. I was wearing a Ducklander call long before I had ever spoke to Bobby Hayes. And it's a call I like. I like it. I can use it. It sounds good to me. Some people, it's the call that I like. And Bobby is a very down to earth guy. And the same thing, he approached us. He wanted to get into some different advertising avenues, and he said, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'll take your stuff all day, every day, absolutely." You know what I mean? So it just but now, like, don't get me wrong, we've knocked on doors too, and we've been told no, because we just weren't the right fit for them, or they had already had somebody, or you know what I mean. And in this world, like this whole social media, podcast, YouTube, you said, like, there's a lot of dudes. There's 100 dudes just like me out there. I'm no better than them. They're just doing what they're doing, and so it is. You know, you kind of said it when you said, we started off small, and then you get introduced to someone, and then, like that. But that's how it is. That's how it's got to be, right? Like,
right.
It takes, you got to, like, I can send out 50 emails tomorrow to companies, and I'm just another regular guy just asking for stuff, right? But when when Corey Foskett or Eric Massey or Sean Stahl introduces me to somebody, well, then that makes a big difference, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's the networking aspect of it, and it makes everything.
That's what
makes everything tick.
That's like, I love the community, right? Like, I love being able to call up Bobby Hayes and say, "Hey man, did you see this on social this morning from this company?" And we'll talk about it and discuss it, or whatever. Like, I really, really, like, that's one of my favorite things about this whole thing, is how we've all sort of kind of connected, right? Like, same with you, like, just out of the blue, just shoot me a message. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. Like, I like it. I enjoy it. It's just fun, man.
It is fun. Now, when you've decided to also start taking this and organizing hunts around it, what sparked that interest?
Well, so there's a company in Ontario that was sort of kind of in the area where I was when I started Punisher Waterfowl. They were established before me, and that was an idea that they had. They started, so they had the camp sort of idea before I did, and it was awesome. Like, that's when I started putting faces to names that you'd seen on social media and on all the chat groups. He was bringing all these guys together, and it was a lot of fun. And then I was like, well, fuck, if he's doing, and I would attend his camps too, right? So I was going to his camps, meeting all the people, and then I would do it. And it was sort of kind of like this big, in a perfect world, it would have been this big, like, rotation where you just hit. So in a perfect world, it would have been 2 or 3 more guys like us doing the same thing all over Ontario, and we would have just ran this big circuit. It didn't work out that way, but that's ultimately how it started. Somebody else done it, and then I just jumped on. I was like, well, if he's doing it, then I should do it. And it was and at that time, it was a money generator for me, because I really didn't have anything else that was generating money for the business. But the camps, the camps would, and I would always use my buddies that were guides that could use the work and could use the exposure, and they were friends of mine, and I would always go with those guys, and it just made for just awesome weekends. It was always a lot of fun. And now it's at the point now where our camps sell out in like 2-3 minutes of Dave. That Dave always handles that. I had nothing to do with the camps. That's Dave's gig. And he gives like a 24-hour notice. Hey, at this time we're making the announcement, so be ready. And clock strikes, Dave is on, he makes his thing, and like 5 minutes later we're sold out. So it's pretty
That's
cool.
So cool.
And
yeah.
And the goal is that as much as we try to as much as we can have new people every time.
Yeah.
Because that's the goal is to introduce people to more people, and then you've got a new hunting partner,
right.
Let's say.
No, it's super cool. And this is how many years have you been doing it?
Oh, smokes. Since I would say 2015. Yeah.
Oh, dang. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been. I think, well, COVID we didn't, because COVID was stupid. We couldn't do nothing. But yeah. But other than that, yeah, we had done some crazy good hunts, some crazy good friends along the way, and yeah, it's been fun, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the refuge.
That's
how you got started with that.
Well, that's my new passion now. So
I can tell. Yeah.
Oh, buddy, I love it.
It's awesome. It's such a cool thing.
So, a good friend of ours, Dave and I, Lori-Ann Horse. So Lori-Ann owns a brand called the Canadian Sportswoman Society.
Okay.
And she was at the Toronto Sportsman Show a couple years ago, and they had given her, because she's a not-for-profit, they had given her some booth space, and she didn't need all the booth space. So what she did is, on the Saturday, she gave booth space to a friend of hers that has like a fishing tackle brand.
Okay.
And then so that girl had the booth space on Saturday, and then on Sunday we were given the booth space. Oh. So so she split it up between the two of us. So we showed up on Sunday, brought down our little makeshift booth that we had put together and stuff, and we had no expectations, didn't know what it was going to be. But when we got down there was like, this is the Toronto Sportsman Show, so probably the biggest outdoor show in Canada.
Yeah.
And buddy, I am not joking when I say there was no representation of waterfowlers there.
That's
at
so
all.
Crazy.
So crazy, right? So I had mentioned it to the boys that week, and I was like, this is crazy. There's nothing here for ducks and geese. Dive Bomb was there. I shouldn't say there was none. Dive Bomb was there. They had a booth, but they weren't selling anything. You could order through their website and stuff. They had it all set up there, but they didn't have stock to sell, because Canada is stupid when it comes to the shipping and stuff like that.
Right.
So Dive Bomb was there, but that was it. So that would have been in March, and then I got home and I just said, man, like, everybody keeps saying, well, no, nobody's gonna go for that. Like, that's crazy. No. So I just reached out to the show and I was like, listen, this is what we notice at your show. This is how I think Punisher Waterfowl can help your show. In turn for the work, we want this. And the guy, it was a new company that had taken over the rights to the Toronto Sportsman Show, and he was honest and upfront with me right off the bat. He said, you know what, Damien? He said, together, the two of us, we're going to build this back up. I was like, okay. So we did it the first year. We didn't have the vendors that we wanted, but and rightfully so, right? Because everybody coming out of COVID, everyone was pinching pennies a little tighter, and people didn't know how the public was going to react to being in big spaces with crowds of people and stuff like that. So last March, we done our first iteration of the refuge. It was a huge success. We didn't have a ton of vendors, but it was still a huge success. Craig Mintz came up from Ohio, came up, set up a huge booth. I think Craig had an excellent time, even though he makes fun of our money all the time. He did have fun, and I know it, but he'll never admit it. And now, so this year, I think I think a lot of people, a lot of businesses came by incognito and checked us out last year, without letting it be known that they were there, and checked us out, because when we started planning for, March of 2024's refuge, we were already having people contact us like,
that's so
hey,
cool.
So like, final approach, right? Like they're coming, like they reached out to us.
Oh, that's cool.
You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that. So that's what gets me out of bed now in the morning is that I'm like, oh, I wonder, did I get an email from this company? And I get it. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? Like there's a lot of no's. There's a lot of people that just can't make it work. It's not in their budget. It's tricky coming into Canada and bringing in gear and the whole bit. So there's a lot of hoops that some of these companies aren't as big as what you think they are, and these hoops are logistically they're just a nightmare for some of these companies, right? So there's a lot of no's, but there's a lot of yeses too. So this year is going to be awesome, and I'm sure it'll continue to grow every year. The biggest thing is that you got to get up there this year. We were hoping you were going to come up. We were hoping you were going to be able to make it up last year, but it was just shitty timing and stuff. But you're not that
really
far.
Tried. I really tried. Yeah, I think when I Googled it, it was like 6.5 hours.
Yeah.
So I can make that work. And honestly, if Craig was going to drive up, I was just going to jump in the bed of his truck and then just hitchhike my way up. So
yeah,
it would have been right on his way,
Yeah. I think so. That's what you should do. I think you should grab a hold of Matt. I think you should grab a hold of Matt Hicks and you and Craig and you just do a road trip up and come up and hang out with us for a weekend.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a blast.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
And that's the other cool thing is Ohio.
I know.
Dude, Dave always says it. He was like, don't be talking about Ohio. Ellithorpe will get mad.
I heard him on I think it was a few weeks ago on your guys' podcast where he goes, oh, Ellithorpe's freaking out right now because we're talking about Ohio.
Yeah.
No, I think it's cool. I mean, like we talked about on your show, like I think that it's just a different style of hunting here. And like you've said before, like there's so many companies here. You got Real Geese, you got Matt from Last Flight Calls.
Yeah.
You've got who was the glove guy? Tom.
Yeah. Lochner. Tom Lochner.
Tom Lochner. Yeah. So down in Columbus, it's like there are a lot of companies. I mean, Zinc Calls was out of here until they got sold. There's big decoy companies. It's a really cool area around the lake that I think a lot of people kind of disregard just because we're kind of on the edge of a flyway. We're a flyway for diver ducks and that whole deal, but then like we're right on the edge of the Mississippi flyway. And so like there's patterns of birds, but it's not like, it's not like standing in Arkansas and like knowing that 100 mallards are going to dump into flooded timber at your feet. Like it's just different, but it's a cool community. And like I've met people in Ohio that I didn't think, that I would have never known were any part of the waterfowl industry. There's a guy I've become friends with. His name's Brett Ayers. He was a designer for Lucky Duck. He works for Sitka. He started this thing called the Retriever Roadmap. And like he's been working with the guy that owns the kennel and developing this training program. And it's just like that's something I would have never. I stumbled across him through photography because that's what he does now, is a lot of photo and video work. And so Riverstone Kennels. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. Yeah, so Riverstone Kennels, and through that, by talking to Brett, I've also met Rob Snell from Gundog Supply.
Yeah.
He does a lot of photo for that kennel too. So like, it's just weird how it branches out, and it started in Ohio. And so like, then I run across Matt a few years ago, and I start talking to him, and it's like, you know, we're both big into photography. We both like duck hunting. You know, it's just like, and I'm not a person to just be like I'm not gonna reach out. No, I'm reaching out. Like, if somebody does something I like, I'm gonna talk to them. And it's just cool. Like, even with Craig, it was just because there's a guy I used to train with for powerlifting that grew up with Craig, and Craig had mentioned something to him about photo or something, and he goes, yeah, I got a buddy that does it, because I was doing photo and video stuff at the gym, and so like people were seeing it. And so he hooked me up with Craig, and then I went down to Craig's shop on like a Saturday, and he just started showing me everything. And now
it's awesome.
I push it in every YouTube video that I'm doing. If we're goose hunting, we're using real geese. We're doing this, and like they've used a few of my photos in some ads and stuff that I sent over to Craig. So it's just been like, it's really crazy that like
it is.
Every state has something, but in like, it's just like you said, just Ohio. It's just weird.
It's just, you know, for a Canadian, right? Like, all we hear about is the South. So Arkansas, Missouri, you know, those areas, like that's all we know. Like, or I shouldn't say that's all we know, but those are the areas that you always hear about, right?
Oh yeah.
But then, you know, I started hearing about Ohio, Washington State, Northern California, Oklahoma, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, man, like, you guys are friggin' spoiled down in the States. And you know, and we're the same as you, right? Like, we're on the edge of a flyway. So we don't get, like, we get ducks, but it's like, we get a lot of honkers.
It's not like a Manitoba.
No, or Saskatchewan. No, not at all. It's not a prairie pothole at all, right? But no, it's cool, man. Like, it really is, and it just goes to show, I think, going back to that idea of people that are leaning on the fence and wondering if they should do, like, put yourself out there. I think you'd be genuinely surprised just how fast you'll connect with people. But it starts by putting yourself out there.
Yeah, you can't really expect anything if you don't try to initiate any conversation. Like, somebody that you're looking at from the outside isn't probably thinking that they want to reach out to you. So it's like, you got to look at it that way and be like, if I'm wanting to reach out to this person, I should just do it. You know, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that the biggest trick, and by no means am I an expert or anything like that, but for anybody that's wondering, and this is what I've always found that worked well for us when I'm cold calling people or cold emailing people, is I start off most emails by saying, listen, I'm not looking for free stuff.
Right.
I don't want to be a pro staff. I don't want to be this. I don't want free stuff. This is who I am. This is our show. I'd love to have you come on as a guest and get to know you. That's how I start 99.9% of all my emails. I don't expect them to, and listen, and people know I'd be lying if I said I didn't get stuff. Of course I get stuff. But what I have learned is that it's not an easy thing to get a hat. You know what I mean? Like, because somebody is always at these companies with their hand out looking for something for free, right? And so I don't expect anything for free. I got no problem paying for the stuff that, if I want it, I'll pay for it and I'll get it and I'll use it and you know what I mean? But I think that's for anybody that's out there and trying to get pro staff positions and trying to get free stuff or sponsorships and stuff like that. I think that the way to do it is by getting to know the people first and let them offer it up to you.
Oh,
That's where we've seen the success, not through asking for sponsorship. There's been a relationship already built before the ask as materialized, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Well, and when you get that person to come onto the show, it gives you, some time before the show, the whole show, and then maybe a little time afterwards to get to know the person, and you have this conversation with them before I think a lot of people say like we talked about earlier, like with the metrics, like somebody will say like, well, I have X and X amount of followers, blah, blah, blah. Like, what can you give me for free? And they're like, they don't like that.
Yeah.
No, if you're just asking them to come on to the show, the nice thing about a podcast is that really all you're asking for is somebody's time. And to be honest, that's the most valuable thing for people is their time.
Especially especially this time of year for the industry fellas, right? Like it's hard. They're on the road. They're constantly in and out of meetings on the road, trying to get in as much hunting as they can because none of these guys hunt as much as they want to anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Because
that's the thing too is once you start working for a business or you own a business, like that's where most of your time's spent. You're trying to build something in the busiest time of the year.
Yeah.
And then also try and hunt. It's not feasible for most people.
No, it's not, and that's hard, right? So you're right. Their time is a commodity, and it is something that they value. The thing that I think surprised us the most was when we would have some of the bigger, and I don't want this to sound bad, but some of the bigger names that have come on the show, like they've been surprised. Like when the show was over, like number of times we've had people say, "Oh, that was a fun show," and like, yeah. And they were like, no, I wasn't expecting, I didn't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. And I want to come back again. And that was one of our big, like they're giving up their time. But then when you can make it fun for them and it's not just, and most of these guys don't even want to talk about their products.
Right. Yeah.
They just want to get on and just shoot the shit about smashing mallards in the face.
Right. Yeah.
They could care less if they talk about their brand. They've got enough people to do that for them. They want to come on and just once it opens up and they can light a cigar, have a beer, and drop an F-bomb. I find they're happy. So I'm pretty spoiled, buddy, when it comes to that.
No, it's cool. And I know that I talked before and I said that we were going to do some listener questions. So I did get some listener questions, and I don't know if you saw them in the Facebook group, but so I've got them here. And so we have one from Cameron, and he says, "What is the funniest hunting story or situation you've been in?"
The funniest. This is a good one. So at one of our camps, so we had a couple brothers that used to hunt, that would hunt with us. And these guys were so competitive against one another. Like it was insane. Like competitive brothers, like insane. So they were in two different groups. And one of the guys that was hunting with us, he had a money ban on his lanyard. So one of the brothers said, "Can I have that money ban just to put it on my lanyard so I can show my brother?" And buddy, so he did, of course. So we get back after the day of hunting, and the one brother says, "Look what we got." And he holds up the goose, and it's got a money ban on it. Well, his brother just absolutely came unglued, could not believe that his brother got, and was like, no. And like I had seen these two guys before almost come to fist over who shot the banded goose. And then we get to this, and here's the one brother holding up the goose and it's got a money ban on it, and the other one is just like gut it, man. Like just gut it. Like could not believe that his brother got a money ban, and they let it go like for a couple hours. Like just let it go and just let Buddy stew over the fact that his brother got this money ban, and then they let him know, funny. And he was even more pissed then because they played a practical joke on him. So, but that was one of the better. But with Ryan Bro and Merc Vitch, there's always been some funny ones with those two, because those guys, yeah, like Ryan is a very serious duck hunter. Merc is very serious at what he does too. So Merc is very particular on grassing in his blind and making sure everything is perfect and set up. And I'm really just yeah, that looks good, boys. Yeah,
just there.
I'm just there. So they sort of sometimes would get annoyed with me or get I'd be like, I gotta go pee, boys. I gotta go pee, and they were like, the witching, and that's Ryan's thing, was always the witching hours upon us. You can't be getting out of the blind now. And I'm like, I got to get out of the blind. So you got to make, and then they just get those little things like that. It was always, it's always funny, but but those are the memories, right? Like the ones when you're always fucking around and stuff like that.
We had a time last year. I was telling you about my buddy Damien, and last year we were shore hunting, and we had a group of scoters come in. We rarely ever see scoters. So we go out, we just thought it was real foggy. So like we dropped them, dog goes out and gets them, brings it back. And I turn around and I go, it's a scoter. And my buddy Damien from the blind, I mean, without missing a beat, he goes, scoters in the lobster bisque. And and I just start dying laughing because it was just out of nowhere. And and then I had to edit that video and I had to listen to it like 16 times in a row going over it. And I'm just dying in here laughing. It's just like you said, those are the memories. But I mean, like that comes up all the time now because we'll be talking about something. I'll be like, scoters. He'll be like, scoters in the lobster bisque. And it's like,
it's funny, eh? Like you got, and that's so like with Ryan. So with Ryan Bro, Simpsons quotes. So him and I, we can go all day on Simpsons quotes, and just like out of nowhere, just regardless of the situation, we've got something that we can tie back to the Simpsons, right? And then like Dave has a really crazy dark sense of humor, right? So like you don't know what Dave's gonna say. Like
that's that firefighter.
Oh yeah. Right. So, and then Philly just like, so everybody that you hunt with, it's a different group. So what's funny with some isn't funny with the others, or, you know what I mean? Like so it's just really, really cool that way that, but like Ryan Bro and I, we went out to Saskatchewan a bunch of years. We drove out. And I think that's all we done was just Simpson quotes the whole time, and just we'd see something and like drive by a fish place and we're like, chow there, and then it'd be like, it was just ridiculous, right? Yeah. So there was always something. It's just different crews, and that's what makes us I think that's why people, when they try duck hunting and goose hunting, I think that's why people follow, because it's such a social hunt. Yes, it's not like anything else, right? Where you have to be like, when I smoked, like I'd be in a field hunt, I'd be standing up having a cigarette, and you could see geese coming from a mile away, and finish my smoke and put it out, and then crawl in and have a laugh with the boys, and you know what I mean? It's just a very social hunt, and I think that's why a lot of people get hooked to it.
Yeah, it's the social aspect. It's like it's relaxing. Where like when you're in a deer stand and you're sitting there freezing, it's like it's not as much fun.
No, at least if you're duck hunting and you're miserable, like you can complain to somebody like this fucking sucks. But when you're in a tree stand, you're up there by yourself. Like you got no one to complain to.
Yeah, you can't even eat.
Yeah.
You pull out a snack, and it's like, well, every deer in a half-mile radius just left. Like,
Well, so I'm not a deer hunter. I've only ever done it once in my life. I climbed up in a tree stand with a buddy of mine. So he said, "Here, get up into this tree stand and see if anything comes by." I didn't know that he was close by and sort of kind of keeping an eye on me, just to make sure. And he told me, he was like, "You'll never shoot a deer." And I'm like, he was like, "You move too much." And I'm like, "What do you mean I move too much? I'm up in a tree stand. I can't move." He was like, "Your head's moving. You're like looking at your phone. Like you can't be doing that stuff." I was like, "I'm never going to be a deer hunter. If I got
yeah,
to be
not
like,
for me.
if I got to be a statue, ain't going to happen. I just don't
No.
have the, no, I just can't do it, buddy."
Yeah. No, I don't blame you there. I mean, like I've done it quite a bit, but it's always been out of like a blind, like a
Yeah.
big, like basically a shed on stilts, or
Oh,
like
cool.
a huge ground blind. It's like then I can kind of move around and like not worry about that kind of thing. But my thing anymore is like if I have time to sit out for hunting deer, I have time to go duck hunting. I live too close to everything. I mean, there's marshes 5 minutes from my house, the lake's 5 minutes from my house. Like it's pretty easy to get out. So there's really not, unless it's like super windy, but even then, like deer hunker down when it's super windy. So what's the point? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
gotta save my brownie points for duck hunting.
Smart man.
Yeah. All
Smart
right. So
man.
we had Rocky. Rocky ask him
Oh, was
about
that Rocky
Landers
Stock? Rocky
Stockdale.
Stockdale.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ask
this
him
should be
about
good.
Landers senior hunt test, if it was her fault or handler error.
Oh, it's handler error, 100%. She failed on her blind. So she failed on her blind. That's what caused her to fail, was
Okay.
on her blind retrieve. And I had lined her up in center. Um, and she went offline right off the bat. I tried to correct it. She took the cast, but she didn't take the cast properly.
Okay.
And then I went back to give the same cast, and it was after that someone said, "Well, no, you should never give the same cast twice, especially if they didn't do it right the first time. Do
Okay.
something complete. So you got to go completely different, right?" So I was going on a back left angle. She took a little bit, but not quite the angle. So I really should have
Okay.
went left over instead of going back on the angle. So yeah, Rocky, eat it. It was handler error, which is usually always the case with the dogs. It's
You
hardly
can't,
ever the
yeah,
dog's
you
fault.
can't blame the dogs.
No, it's hardly ever the dog's fault, man. That's what I've learned. Most of the
Yeah.
time, it's the human aspect of it that screws it up.
Oh yeah. I mean, even like so I mean, even with my own dog, like if he screws up on something, it's because I didn't prepare him for it. And I'm not a
Mhm.
professional dog trainer. So like
Yeah, yeah,
I got him during COVID, and I had a guy that lives close to me that he trains gun dogs, and like, we did basically like the gun dog beginner like training stuff, and like he was such a pain in the ass to train. Like he got gun shy at one point.
hmm
He wouldn't go in the water for like 4 or 5 months of the training, and then one day I took him out to the lake and I just picked him up and dropped him in. He got like
yeah.
up to his chest, spread his legs out like this, and he was like, "What the hell?" And I had a bundle of goose wings that he was really jacked up about. I start batting him in the water, and now I can't keep him out of it. So it's like
Yeah,
there's certain things that I've pushed through, and I feel good about it. I'm proud of myself for figuring it out. But
yeah.
I mean, like, I can't. I'm not a dog trainer. I was able to like make a dog hunt, and that's about as far as I got, you know.
Well, I train with my buddy Bill Kennedy, who is a dog trainer. And I've said a million times that Bill's spent more time training me than he has my dog.
Right.
Yeah, like 100%. There's more time spent training me. Do you need to do this? You need to stand
Right.
like this. You need to do this with your hand. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of
So
what the guy that I worked with did. He taught me, and then like I would be with him for an hour, and then I would have like homework to go home
yeah,
and do it and like try to teach that thing that he
yeah,
showed me how the dog should do it. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Yeah.
like he kind of trained me to train the dog, and I think the next time around I will definitely have a better idea of what to do. But at the same time, like I mean, I talk to people around here, like even Phil was talking about it, how he got his dog from here, and there's some really some good trainers. There's some really good
Yeah.
trainers, and like I'm better off just sending. If I want a top-notch dog, I might as well send them off, because it's like I don't have the time that I can dedicate to making that dog like a grandmaster champion
That's
dog.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I
it's
do.
just
I totally do.
it's just crazy. And then we have Greg came back. He put up about 7 different questions here,
Oh,
but
Greg
he
Taylor.
he wanted you to explain the logic behind bagged milk.
Oh, so did you ever hear that story?
No.
So the boys. So I'm originally from Newfoundland, so which
Right.
is an island on the east coast of Canada, right? So we don't have our milk coming in cartons. We don't have the like down in the States or in Missouri, anyways. Like I used to be able to buy like 2-gallon jugs of milk
Right.
in Missouri, right? So we don't. I don't see that. Like we could get 2 liters, which is
Yes.
in a carton. But in Ontario, you get your milk. You can get your milk in plastic bags, and when you buy it, it's in a big plastic bag with 3 little bags inside. Each one, I'd say probably a liter and a half.
Okay.
So the boys from First Light come up from Idaho, and they come up hunting with us. And I don't know how it all started, but somebody had mentioned that we had to pick up a couple bags of milk for something. I don't know what it was. I don't know how it started. And anyways, Kevin Harlander and Logan Williamson sort of kind of just stopped what they were doing and were like, bags of milk? And they're like, yeah, bags of milk. They were like, the fuck are you guys talking about? So then we had to explain to them the whole that milk was coming in a bag, and they were just like, well, why wouldn't you just put it in a carton? Like, why don't you just buy it? I'm like, I don't know. It comes in a plastic bag. And they were like, so how do you get the milk out of the bag? So then I had to say, well, you got to buy a jug to put the bag into the jug, and then you got to cut the ends off the bag in order to pour it out. And they were like, you're creating so much work. And I'm like, I'm not disagreeing with your logic. I'm just saying this is the way it is. And they were it was funny. It's now become a joke that we still carry on with those
fantastic.
Guys. But yeah, like bags of milk. But I think it's only Ontario and Canada that does it. I don't think anybody else.
Okay.
I don't think anybody else does it. But anyways,
so
it was
funny.
just it was pretty funny. Like they're bags of milks. That's what they would say. Like you're getting bags of milks. And I'm like, no, you don't say. It's not bags of milks. And they were like, but there's multiple bags in that one bag, so it's plural. I'm like, yes, but that sounds stupid. So you got to say just bags of milk.
Oh,
but it's milk. But it's milked. So it was an ongoing thing. It was just funny.
I'm really glad that I picked that question now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We're getting close to the end here, and I'd like to ask this question at the end of the podcast. If money and time was not a significant restriction for you, what would be a hobby that you would want to pick up?
If time and money.
If they didn't matter.
Skiing. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love downhill skiing. Absolutely
awesome.
love it. Yeah, absolutely love it.
Now, is that a Newfoundland thing, or is that an Ontario thing?
No, well, I learned in Newfoundland, but
okay.
But I, like I don't own my own ski gear. When I go, I get it from the ski hill or whatever like that. But if I could hunt all fall and then ski all winter, that would be like the perfect world for me.
That's so cool. I didn't know if I mean, I don't know much about Newfoundland, but I didn't know if there was like mountains there, a mountain range.
There is, but
Okay.
it's not the Rockies, right? So
Yeah.
so actually, the on the west coast of Newfoundland we call it the Long Range Mountains, but
Okay.
it's actually part of the Appalachian. So
okay.
yeah, so the Long Range Mountains and the Appalachian Mountains were once one, and then whatever happened to the world and things split up and stuff. So yeah, so the height of the Appalachian Mountains are the same as what my mountains are where I'm from.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is really cool, eh?
Yeah. I started snowboarding at like the tail end of my high school career, and I got semi good at it, but I've always enjoyed it.
Oh, buddy, so snowboarding, I tried it once. It's the most difficult backwards thing I've ever tried to do in my life, and I was like, no, I'll stick to skis.
Fair enough.
Yeah, snowboarding is just like everything on your back foot. It just throws me off.
That's understandable.
My brain cannot compute. If I want to turn, I got to use my back foot. It's just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know if it's maybe I used to like skateboard a little bit as a kid, so I don't know if maybe that helped, but
yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I picked it up fairly quick, and I've always enjoyed it. So that's cool that you're into skiing like that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. When I go, like if I go for a weekend skiing, like I just up the hill, down the hill, up the hill, down the hill. Like I'll get in, like that's all I do. It's just up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. I don't eat. I don't like I'll have my backpack on with water. I'll drink on the lift up. Like I don't eat, I don't come in, I don't do anything. I ski as much as I can because I don't get to do it, right?
Right.
I don't get
so
to
it's
do
like
it,
you kind of
like
binge while you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that I would say that's probably one of my favorite things to do besides hunting.
That's so cool. I don't know. I just wouldn't have guessed. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to ask that question and see where people's minds go. Some people stay in the outdoors, and other people just like completely go off something different. Which I mean, skiing is technically still outdoors worthy, but it's just it's a different avenue, which is cool.
But if I had the skill, I would have been in a rock and roll band, buddy.
There you go.
I would have loved the rock and roll lifestyle. I know it.
Oh yeah.
Awesome, Brian.
Well, thank you for coming on, Damien. I really appreciate it. If you guys don't listen to the Punisher Waterfowl podcast, you need to go check it out. These guys are awesome. And you can go back and listen to a couple of the episodes I was on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely, Brian, buddy. Thank you. You're a friend. It's not just, it's not just you reached out to me to ask me to come on. Like you are a friend, and I appreciate you, buddy. I really do.
I appreciate you too.
I love watching your social feeds, and I love hearing about what you got coming up and stuff. It makes me proud, buddy. So I'm really happy for you, and I'm glad to see all the hard work that you've put into your own craft. That things are moving for you. So I can't wait I can't wait to follow you the rest of the fall, and just know under my breath I'm cursing you a little bit sometimes.
I'll allow it.
All right, buddy.
Thank you for coming on, Damien. I appreciate it.
You're awesome. You're welcome, buddy. Thank you.